Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the NewBlueFX Titler Pro 3 webinar. My name is Adam Dolan and I'll be your moderator today. At this point, I want to introduce our VP of Products, Travis White. Travis has more than 15 years of experience in video and 3D applications. He's developed more than 30 products and has worked as a Hollywood editor. Today he's going to show you how beauty meets efficiency with the Titler Pro 3. Travis, welcome.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone out there. This is Travis White, and I'm going to go through a couple bullets here of what you're going to learn today. The first thing is a great new feature in Titler Pro 3, and that's how to control many titles in your timeline with one template. I know a lot of you guys do a lot of talking head work out there, some reality shows, a lot of interview stuff, and you're using lower thirds all the time. And in fact, the longer your production is, just the more lower thirds you have going on. And often, we understand how frustrating that might be to get all those different versions of that title out there. And come to find your client or the producer comes back and says, hey, you know what? I want changes. And you're like, changes times 20, changes times 15, whatever it might be. So we're going to show you how to control many titles with one template. Then we're going to move on to actually how to create one of those templates. How do you create a template that has kind of an intelligent design about it? One of the great things is not only exposing text and changing that and changing style, but we're going to show you how to make a template that then can live in different durations and lengths, even though it's animated. That's something you just really haven't seen before. Usually when you have animated titles, they're fixed time and duration. We're going to show you how to change that. The next thing here, we're going to make any title a flexible template. So I'm going to show you how to get that done just from the ground up, and you'll really see how to get that happening in Titler Pro 3. And lastly, I'm going to show you some creative visual impacts, some new things in Titler Pro 3 that are really good for just a great impact. There's depth of field as well as normal mapping. If you guys know about normal mapping, it puts a texture on your text or your characters that reacts to light, gives you shadow and highlight. So without further ado, let's get started. All right. So let's get over to Premiere Pro. This is the NLE I'll be using today. So now we have Premiere Pro showing. Now the fact is you can do this work in any of the different NLEs. You have Avid Media Composer, you have Final Cut, you have Sony Vegas, you have Grass Valley Edius. We really support all of those with Titler Pro 3. But I'm going to show you how to do it in Premiere Pro. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get some title instances into our bin. So let's go NewBlue Titler Pro 3, click OK, and up pops a new UI, especially for you guys that are familiar with Titler Pro 2. We're going to get into what this is in a minute, but this is Quick Edit. Let's just close this down and let's get a couple more title instances into our timeline. And one more here. All right, so I'm going to bring these instances down to the timeline, and I'm going to place them over some areas where we have some talking heads. Let's go ahead and do that. So right here we have this guy Kusha, who's kind of the founder of this new app called Exascribe, and this is a video kind of showing what Exascribe is all about, or Exascribe. This next one is Jennifer. She's a training specialist. And finally, we have Bill, who is a user of the app. And so these are the different kind of talking heads we're going to have in this presentation and get this stuff going. Well, you can go to any one of the titles and double click. Historically, that opened up Titler Pro's design interface, but now it opens up Quick Edit. Just as a side note, if you want to open directly to Titler Pro, you can go into Settings and choose, Always Open to Title Designer, which is what we're now calling that design interface. But in any case, there's a couple things to take note here. One is that it's very clean, very quick interface. You have the ability to pick a template, for which we're going to do right now. Let's go down to BlueTube. And here in our little preview window, you can see and you can scrub what this lower third is going to do for you with BlueTube. And it also brings in some text variables that you can edit. In fact, we'll edit those right now. Let's see. Let's do Kusha Raman, and let's give it a subtitle. He's founder and CEO. So we can go ahead and also just get a label for ourselves. We want to know that this is the title of Kusha. And the great thing about Quick Edit, it's managing all your titles in your entire timeline. So we have this other title right here that's right over Jennifer. We can pick that template, that blue tube template that we want to use. And let's get Jennifer in there. Jennifer Hollister. And we can call her Training Specialist. There we go. And we'll give it a label so we know which one we're working on in our title list. And finally, there's Bill. So let's go ahead and pick that template, blue tube. Bill Firster, let's say. We'll do all caps to keep it consistent. And he is simply a customer. All right, so now we have 3 titles that have all been controlled within one quick edit experience. I didn't have to close down a title, scrub down my timeline, open up another one, close it down, scrub down my timeline. So if I go ahead and close quick edit, you'll notice that we have Kusha Raman right here. We have Jennifer Hollister, and we have Bill Firster, all happening right here. In fact, these are all default 8 seconds because that's what our default duration was. One thing we want to do is get into the next feature, which is Elastic Timeline. But before we do that, we want to take a bit of a pause and ask for any questions. Now, before we do, I'm sure probably the first question that's going to come in is, hey, I saw you had templates. How do I get those, right? Well, it's very easy. For one, you can just do File, open one of your NB title files and create a template out of that. You can start a new template from scratch right here. You can open up an existing template. There's a lot of ways to get them in. What I'm using is one of the predefined or preset templates that are right here on the list to get you going quickly. But let's see if we have any questions.
Yes, Travis, on that same note, how many actually preset styles and templates come with Title Pro 3?
Title Pro 3, just all told, as far as animations, lower thirds, styles, effects, there's over 500 different presets to really get you going.
Great. Another question was, someone was wondering if the Title Pro 3 was GPU accelerated, like our other products are.
Yes. In fact, Title Pro is 100% GPU accelerated. That's what it's actually a full 3D engine inside here. Unlike other compositing tools, this is a full 3D scene happening inside Title Pro. Actually, one of the benefits there is that because it's all vector information, it kind of doesn't matter what project you have it on in your NLE timeline. You don't have that problem of rasterization of lower res or higher res assets. It scales to wherever you're going to use it.
Are you going to be showing some of the presets that come with Titler 3 in the webinar?
I won't in this webinar simply for time because we have a lot to get through. But I could jump over and pop a couple of them and see how that goes.
Okay, great. And lastly, before we continue, the question was, all of the features that you're showing today in Premiere Pro, are all transferable? That if you have Vegas or any of the other NLEs, everything comes with it, so there's no differences across the board.
That's right. I mean, the minor difference is how do you get the Title or Pro instance into your timeline, and that's specific to each NLE. For example, for Avid Media Composer, it's a video effect in the effect palette, and you drag that down as an effect. Here in Premiere Pro, it's what's called a synthetic importer. So you do new, and just like you do new sequence, it's right there, new Title Pro 3. In Final Cut, it's in the video generators folder. In Vegas, it's both an effect and a generator. So you have different ways to get the title into your timeline, which our help files totally help you out with. But once that happens, the quick edit experience, the title design experience, it's all the same.
And those help files, those can be found on our website?
Those can be found on our website and directly through the links within the product as well.
Great. Okay, well, that's some of the questions we have around. We'll get to a few of them later and continue as planned.
All right, so next we're going to get into how to make these titles different lengths. In fact, you can see here in Quick Edit, we have this duration of 8 seconds. That was the default. Now, I want to go through the timeline a little bit and notice that this first title that's animating in and gets to the end and it's animating out, you can see, okay, that was part of the title design. The template, it animates in at a certain point in time, animates out, and it finishes itself. Well, down here, when we get to Jennifer, she's talking longer. and we've run out of title. So we want this title to be longer, even though we're using the same template. And finally, with Bill, well, he's not talking enough, and our title still hangs out over Jennifer. So we need different durations to happen. Now, historically, if you've been working with still titles, you're like, hey, what's the big deal? I stretch my still titles long and short, no problem. Well, of course, because it's one frame repeated, I don't know how many times. But when you get into animated graphics, they have a finite period of time. They come in, they go out at certain points in time. So it really was a challenge, and especially if you guys dealing with video assets. Maybe you have maybe yourself, or maybe you have a graphics partner providing you some lower third rasterized, like some some MOV files that have alpha in them, and you've been working with them. It's a very fixed asset, and you really don't have a lot of flexibility with that, or you might find yourself slicing and dicing on your timeline and really working with that. Well, the great thing about Titler Pro 3 is that it can modify a template according to your design interests. So let's go ahead and open up Quick Edit. And first off, this duration is 8 seconds. Let's say we don't want it 8 seconds. We want 6 seconds instead. So we'll say 6, enter. We'll close this down. Now, if you notice, if we zoom into the timeline here, there's now some tail on this clip that's not being used anymore. If we scrub this, you'll see that the title has already gone away, even though we have some tail here. So let's trim that down just to what you need. So there's 6 seconds of title. So in the very beginning, you have this nice animation in. Let's see, let's do this animation here so you can guys see it. I know you guys don't have a high frame rate, so I'm trying to click around as smooth as I can be. And then finally in the end, it's sliding right out there. So that's a great way to just quickly just open it up and say, you know what, I need a different duration. But how's it doing it? How is it keeping those animations? You might think, hey, well, it's just making the intro longer, is making it shorter, and that's actually not the case. Let's click this button, Title Designer, and we'll get from the Quick Edit UI to the Titler Pro Title Designer UI. And you'll see down here on the bottom, we have this thing called Elastic Timeline. It's this blue button that I've clicked on, and you'll see right here, because of that, in fact, if I click it off, you'll see there's no particular colors at the top of the timeline. If I click it back on, you'll see we have this orange section, we have this green section, and we have this orange section again. Orange means fixed. I want this region of my composition to be fixed. If we slide this up a little bit, you see the composition's kind of complex. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 different paragraphs that are operating. And if we scrub back, you'll see how these different animations are doing their business. Well, in this whole area up until 3 seconds, I'm saying, hey, fix this thing. Never change. Don't get longer. Don't get shorter. But in this green middle body, I want you to stretch or shrink according to compensate for the amount of title I want. And then in the end, same thing, a fixed region. Now you can change that simply by going to the border between your fixed and your elastic regions, and you can just drag it to a new location and make it work like that. So anyway, that is how you have you put a kind of an intelligence into these templates where they where you can specify what you want. In fact, what's really great is you can go somewhere in the middle, let's say, and click this plus button or right click, either way, add region. So we're going to add a region, and now I've just added another fixed region in the middle. So now I've got 3 fixed regions and 2 elastic regions. That might be really helpful if you had this logo flip that you wanted to happen every so often, and you wanted that flip to take exactly 15 frames or exactly 1 second to get done. You could put that in a fixed region and get it done that way. But I'm going to go ahead and just delete that fixed region, and we'll go ahead with that. So there's 2 durations here, and now you can kind of see why there is. 8 seconds is my Titler Pro timeline composition, how I originally made this template. Whereas over here on the left, we have 6 seconds, which is this specific instance of this title in the NLE operating using Elastic Timeline, making that happen. So if you notice, if I scrub through, we have this counter here. We're up at 3 seconds. That's all good. We get up here. If I go ahead and hit play, I know you guys can't see a full frame rate, but I want you to look at this ticker here. 6 seconds. It actually jumps from I think from this point to this point, the playhead actually jumps to make sure that it's 6 seconds long. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Once you play with it, you'll fully get the idea, and we have a great tutorial on this as well. So there you go. So not only can you use a template in many different instances, you can also use one design in many different durations. So this is probably a good time to ask about a couple different questions as well. I'm going to close this down. Oh, here's a question. I got into the title designer here, and it says apply to template or apply to the title. I'm just going to discard my changes because I didn't want to make any changes, and we'll get into that later.
We had one question regarding the tutorials. If someone's looking for tutorials about Elastic Timeline, or do we have things coming up, and where can they find it? We do have resources at the moment.
Well, we do have some great resources on our website. But a great place to go is to YouTube, actually. I mean, you can find tutorials on Titler Pro 3. We're continuing to throw more and more out all the time, as well as there's still very relevant tutorials about Titler 2 and stuff, because, this feature set's really been growing, right? As well as all the other effects we have. And Adam, what's the link to subscribe to YouTube?
That's www.newbluefx.com www.youtube.com/newbluefx. And actually, once you subscribe from that page, you'll be automatically receiving anything we put out in terms of tutorials or videos immediately. So that will be an update right in your email, and you can check out all the latest stuff. Another question we had was regarding I know we kind of touched on it, but saving templates and exporting templates. I don't know if you're going to get to that later.
I can get to that now, actually. Let's go ahead and just open up Quick Edit. We could actually just go to Title Designer. As far as saving a template, you could just File, Save As, and save an NB title file, and you've saved a template. Another way you can do is import it, but let's close this down. Discard my changes. There's some really fast ways to do it. Let's say you've just been working on a title, you like what you have, you've done some modifications. You can go up to, in the Quick Edit, you can go to File, Add Current Title to Template List. And right there, it's going to throw that right down on your list, or start a new template from scratch and start designing. The settings menu, the file menus is really where you find those answers.
And when you export a file from Titler Pro 3, what type of file is that exporting as?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways. Let's get into Title Designer again. Under File, you have Save As. And what Save As does is really just saves a project file of Titler Pro. It's called NB Title. And that has all the information about the objects and their orientation, but it doesn't necessarily have the font you might have used. It doesn't necessarily have it doesn't have the image assets. It only points to them wherever they might have been on your machine. So if you have an interest to archive or to share this particular production, you really want to go down in the File menu and go down to Export Package. And what that's going to do is it's going to take that NB title file and take any fonts that you used and take any textures or videos that you might have used as textures or images, or videos or images as textures, and package them all up in one zip. And then you can share that, you can archive it, do whatever you want with it, take it to your other machine. And then the next thing you would do is when you're at that other machine, you create an instance of Titler Pro, and then you come into File, Import Package, and you can work from there.
Very cool. And earlier on, we had a question regarding the graphics cards. Any recommendations, or at least what we should be using, or what folks should be using to run Titler Pro 3?
Being that it is 100% GPU accelerated and it is a full 3D environment, we really do recommend going with either an AMD or an NVIDIA card. We have the specifications. I'm not recalling the latest generation that were put as our minimum system requirements, but trust me, it's not big as far as 3D applications go. I would say that it's a little hit or miss on the Intel HD cards. Some of them, like the 5000s, tend to be working well, whereas older generation Intel HDs aren't up to snuff. They just don't have enough juice to really make it happen. So I really would recommend NVIDIA cards, AMD cards, dedicated graphics cards to get this going.
Great. And someone else wanted to know, are we going to be covering, I know initially we didn't say anything about it, but basic shapes? Do you have time maybe at the end to show something along the lines of a just, movement, maybe a bug movement or just.
Yeah, and in fact, we'll get into another section that is creating more of an open title sequence other than just this lower third stuff. But actually, a good thing to do right now, which is great, is like we've got this lower third template. How do you modify the style? Let's say that, in fact, let's do that right now. I'm going to close this one out, and I'm going to point something out to you guys. Let's get over to Bill's title here. Now, you can see the company bug at the top. We've just kind of slapped it up in the top corner. It's got this blue arrow thing going on. It's very much this X angular kind of look. Well, this lower third template that we picked, it's this rounded kind of look, right? And you said, you know what? I want to have more synergy into this design. So let's go ahead and open up Quick Edit. Let's get into Title Designer. And let's start modifying this template, and we'll be modifying a shape, actually. This is a rectangle that's been rounded. We're gonna unround this and have a different skew on it. So let's go ahead and say the first thing I want to do is, just for my convenience, so you guys don't have to deal with keyframe, I'm just going to turn off keyframing for these two shapes here. And so now this blue shape right here, we're going to go into the Object tab. Now this is a rectangle. You can do Add Shape, Rectangle, and that's how you get started. Now, every shape has its own style layers. So right here we have this blue gradient layer. We have this 3D face layer. We have 3D outline. So you got a couple different layers going on, right? So let's go in to the Object tab and change the shape of this shape. So the first thing we want to do is take out that radius. Let's go ahead and take it out so it gets much more angular. And then we have this other direction with the company logo here with those arrows. So let's flip that around. Let's turn this back on itself to start emulating the look of the company. We can go to this other little white rectangle at the bottom, do the same thing. Take the radius out and change its skew. So now it's got this more of this arrow kind of look. So that's a really great thing here. So we've got this arrow kind of look. It's much more in line with the company logo. Let's do something else as well, because I really want to show you guys how to make flexible templates. So we've made this aesthetic change. Now let's go into pointing out what happens with this text. How did this text appear in the Quick Edit UI to be editable? Well, how that happened was in the Object tab, I have a piece of text, Bill Firster here. See this text variable checkbox? I've checked it on, and I gave it a label, name. So every Quick Edit that opens that uses this template has this little label name and then a field that puts somebody's name, like Bill Firster. And then this second piece right here that's currently saying customer, text variable, subtitle. Well, maybe the label subtitle is not the best label for it right now. Let's say position is the label that we want. And finally, this blue here, we want to do something different with blue. Maybe we want to mix it up a little bit depending on the character that's coming into play. So this blue rectangle, I'm going to go into the Style tab. And remember that we had these 3 layers of style layers that are operating. Well, one of them was this gradient blue. Let's say we want a texture instead. So I'm going to go over to Texture, import a texture, and maybe this nice swooshy blue JPEG here. And maybe change its, I hit this hand tool. This hand tool is great for resizing, stretching and making sure a texture looks good, how you want it there. And now, just like the image, or just like the text that we worked with this image, we can choose to have an image variable. So let me check that on, and let's call it background. So that'll be our label, background. All right, so now we've done a number of things to this title. We've changed the shape, we've changed the color, we've enabled text as variables, and we've enabled an image as a variable as well. Let's just close down Title Designer, and I'm prompted with this question. You guys saw this earlier, but now we'll give a little bit more expression to what this means. We have a number of choices. Hey, you just made a whole bunch of changes. Do you want to apply this to the template, which means that any title looking at this template is going to get these changes? Or do you want to apply it to this individual title? So it's like, hey, I'm doing something unique, keep it on this title. Or discard, bail out, right? I didn't want that. So let's apply to the template. And now, when we close down, check out what happens. Bill Furster, nice angular look. Jennifer Hollister, her text didn't get touched. That's because it was exposed as an image variable. So her text is fine, but she's got this nice angular look on it again. And we go back to Kusha. He's got that nice angular look as well. If we go to Jennifer, maybe blue's not her color. So now that we open Quick Edit, check this out. We have name, we have position. Remember, we changed the label of that text. And we have this background. So I can go in and pick a different background. Let's say we got this, I think we got a red one here, kind of this pinkish red. Let's open that up and close down so we can see in Premiere Pro. Now she has a red background in her lower third. So the things that were shared that were not exposed as variables, everybody got them. The things that were exposed as variables, they're staying unique to each title. So you can really see the power of Quick Edit and these templates working in your timeline across the board. And again, just bringing back the horror situation of your customer or the producer saying, you know what, it's the nth hour, but it's not blue anymore, guys, it's gold. You're like, no problem. One template, get in there, one change, and you get that ripple through all your 20 titles, 50 titles, however many you need to do. And one last thing I forgot to show, which is really cool. Let's just open up the Quick Edit GUI. Check this out. We have all the text strings being exposed, so you can see Bill or Jennifer and see what image they're using and see what the text is. So you can really inspect all in one place. There's like, oh, shoot, that's not a doctor, it's an MD, or whatever you need to do. You can get all that done right here in Quick Edit. All right, but it's probably a good time for, I bet a lot of questions came up out of this one, so it's probably a good time for more questions at this point.
Thanks, Travis. Folks were wondering if they could actually import this. I think this is a question from the previous one, but import anything third party in terms of lower thirds into Titler. And if not, do we offer anything that allows you to do that in terms of additional templates?
Third party, no other third party technologies, so to speak. But if you bring in video assets, texture assets, then definitely those can be used to compose lower thirds or titles, right? And, any title's going to need some cool kind of texture on it. If it's not a color or a gradient, it's an image. And so there's, great, stock companies out there that have a lot of great textures, stone and gravel and all those kinds of things. Definitely want to use that stuff. As far as complete lower third designs, we have actually a number of collections available as well, and we're going to continue to build that up. So we have this one called On Air, one called Prime Time, one called Graph Packs, and these are great lower third presets. Just great more designs to get you going. In fact, with Titler Pro 3 right now, as it's selling, it's actually as a promotion. It's coming with which one is it?
I believe it's the On Air.
Which On Air? Okay. When you buy Titler Pro 3 right now, either an upgrade or full retail if you didn't have Titler Pro before, you already get one of those lower third collections coming with it. So not only do you get the lower thirds that come pre-built inside, but you can get that additional collection, which is really great.
Another question we had was, once a template is created or applied, can you change it to a different template without losing your text?
You can if the labels are the same. So I did something here. I changed the label position. I'm going to see if I can change to red streak. Aha, look at that. So I changed to red streak, and now we have this different design, but it kept Jennifer Hollister, but it didn't keep the lower third because the label was different. So what you can do is you can, the pre-designed collections that we all have, they have the identical label, name, subtitle, name, subtitle, name, subtitle. So you can be swapping back and forth between them. And so, for example, let's retype. What did we have for Jennifer? She has a training specialist. And let's go to drift. Different kind of look. Hey, look at that. We got drift happening here. And Jennifer Hollister and training specialist persists. Or let's go back to Bluetooth. Up, the position, different, right? So, yes, if the labels are the same, the text will persist. And obviously, Titler Pro has to know, is this the same paragraph that you want replaced, right? And that's how it knows.
Another question we had was, is it possible to add your own image or background? I think you kind of covered that with you were talking before about importing your own kind of video.
Definitely. In fact, if we want to go a little crazier with this, I can open up. Let's get patriotic here. Let's see. If we go into my videos, this is a video that's just very obvious. You can really see what's going on. Here's a flag. So I can put a flag into this. Let me close this down. And check this out. We've got a flag operating as a texture inside my lower third. So any video can also be a texture that's completely replaceable with those variables, or in the design if you get into the title designer.
Great. That's the questions for now. Move on to the next section.
Okay, so we've shown you how to control many titles with one interface called Quick Edit. We've shown you about elastic timeline, how a title can stretch to be longer or shorter, but still preserve your original design intent with animations by making fixed and elastic regions. I showed you how to make flexible templates, how to expose those variables for text, how to expose those variables for images, how to change the visual design and have that ripple through. Now I want to jump into a little bit more creative side of Titler Pro 3. And we're going to use some features that obviously have already existed in Titler Pro, but we're going to get into what is depth of field as well as what are normal maps. So the one thing we want to do here is let's just make an open title for this whole show. So I'm going to, in Premiere Pro, I'm going to go into my new item, Titler Pro 3. There you go. Plop it down into my timeline, enter text, and we're going to open this up, and let me just go straight into Title Designer and start working with this. So this will take a little longer because we're actually starting from scratch. No templates here, but I want to show you some great things here. So first off, let's scrub to a position where this nice deep look with the camera. So we got this Kusha, he's looking at his phone, his proud application. And I've got some distance in the background. So I want to start putting in some words. Easy. And let's put that up there. And let's double click and put another word in, fast. Position that. And lastly, we'll put in a word, effective, because that's what we want everything to be. Easy, fast, and effective. Now, the one thing I want to do here is when we work with depth of field, obviously things have to be at different Z depths in order for something to be in focus and something else to be out of focus. So what we want to do is go to easy, let's say, and it's Z depth. Let's throw that back a little bit. Let's take it back, minus 100 or so. There we go. Effective. Let's bring this forward a bit. So let's bring this to, let's say a 75-ish. There we go. And now I want to go into the Scene tab. This is a wide angle control. So you can actually see it controls more of an extreme look in your title. And so the default's 11. I'm going to go to 60. There we go. So we got these three titles operating. Now, one great new feature in Titler Pro 3 is actually multi-select, where you can do a lot of operations all at once, or on multiple paragraphs, I should say. So I'm going to use Control to select all three of these paragraphs, and I'm going to get into that XYZ handle for rotation, and look how you can rotate all of these guys at the same time. In fact, I'm going to get a little bit of bevel on here, so I can go to my Style and bring in just a little bevel there. That looks probably good, and or extrusion, I should say. And now I want to start working with their Z depth. And what is depth of field going to look like with this? So let's go to the Scene tab. This is basically everything about your scene. So no particular paragraph owns what's happening here. It's about your lighting, it's about your wide angle lens, and it's about your camera. So let's turn on depth of field. Got a lot of blurriness going on here right now. Because I have these three paragraphs selected, let me go back to the Attributes tab in Object. Now, so there's this Z position, but because I have all 3 paragraphs selected, it's going to offset all of them at a certain point. So let's do this. Let's go back to the Scene tab. Let's open up depth of field, and let me dial in some values that I know I want. So there we go. We can see the word fast has really come into focus around 100. In fact, I'll just do 100 there. And my aperture, that's a narrower depth of field or a wider depth of field. I know I want 80 for this project. And blur level, let's just do 20 there. So let's go back to the Attributes tab. All 3 paragraphs are still selected, and I'm going to work with that Z position. So I can push this text so fast is focused. I can push this text so easy is focused. I can push it so effective is focused. So that's a great thing. So let's go ahead and keyframe this, shall we? So let's get it to a point where fast is in focus, and let's get it to a point where effective is in focus. How's that? And get it to where effective is in focus. There we go. And let's put a keyframe down because we want to start moving this stuff. So I'm going to turn on keyframing and throw down a keyframe. Now notice all 3 paragraphs get the same keyframe because I still have them all selected. So we can go back a little bit here, and let's push. So we have fast in focus, and let's push again. So we have easy in focus. And finally, at the beginning of our title, keyframe 1, we want to make sure all these guys really just fly out of the scene. So now if I go ahead and play this, I have easy, fast, and effective all happening at the same time. One thing I want to do is turn on smooth interpolation, and we'll have this nice pause. I know you guys can't see it, but later on when you watch this, you will. So now let's jump to these different keyframes here. Easy's looking good. Keyframe number 3, Easy's kind of over Kusha's face. We don't want that. So now we can break away from the multi-select and use just a single select on a paragraph and scoot Easy out of the way. Let's get to keyframe 4, and again, scoot Easy out of the way. So that's going to work a lot better. Now, later on, we want to have a bit of a hold. Let's select them all again, throw down a keyframe just to have it held, and then finally, we want them to fade off into the distance. So there we go. So now you can really see how this depth of field brings this kind of new life to what we're doing, and more realistic and atmospheric, like in the space kind of look that we have going on here. So there's one more piece that we want to do in this particular title, and that's to bring in the company logo. So let's slide down here, maybe to this point right here. That might be good. And now we want to bring in a whole new asset. So let's go to File. The company said, you know what, we lost our AI file. We only have this PNG. What can I do with this? Well, no problem. So we'll import an image. This is a simple little PNG here. In fact, I'll size that up just a little bit. Now, the PNG has alpha in it. That's good, but it's not very readable. So I need to do some stylization here to get this going. So one thing I can do is go to the Style tab. The one layer already has this PNG image. I want to put in another layer. Let's say let's do a face. Let's grow that face up a little bit, and let's give it a darker color, a nice kind of slate gray. So you can really see that starting to pop. Now, slate gray against some of that dumbbell work in the background, still not popping, so let me go into the 3D and bring in an outline. So let's color pick a white, because a nice white outline would be good, and let's bring up the thickness. So I could really bring up the thickness here, dial that back to something a little bit more reasonable, like a 10 or so. And finally, because I have the Muse, I'm going to make this thing a pill. Remember when we said, shape modification? We can go back to the object, shape, radius, really dial that up, and now we have this more of this pill kind of look about it. The other shapes for that person that asked, we have rectangles, we have ellipses, we also have stars. Very cool tools. Stars may be even misleading because it's kind of myopic in what it can do. It can have a number of points, rounded or not. You could make like badges out of it. It's a great tool. Go experiment with a star for sure, but I won't waste your guys' time with it at this moment. So now we have this this Exascribe logo here, and we want it to come into space. So you know what? I want to make this a little longer, about this second here. Let's get to this point, and I want to keyframe this thing also. So let me turn on keyframing, and I want a nice smooth keyframing, and hit the plus button, throws down a keyframe. And then let's go back up, and let's do a rotation here. So let's do a rotation. Oh, look at that. Because we have depth of field on, notice how the far edge of the logo is starting to blur. The front edge of the logo is starting to blur, but the center's still clear. So that's a great thing about that. So let's keep rotating this until we have kind of a nice orientation here. And then let's work with Z and really get it towards us. Let's say like a 150-ish. Let's see what this is going to look like. Oh, that looks good. So it's kind of running right by us. Do that a little again. So we have these different positions in space, a little blur happening, some focus, and there you go. Now, the next thing we want to show is normal mapping. So what is normal mapping? Well, we have textures, like images or videos, which we've used. We have color, and we have gradient that we've been talking about. But a normal map, it can do something new. You can still use a color in a normal map, or a gradient in a normal map, or a texture in a normal map, texture being an image or a video. We're going to go into the Style tab, and on that gray layer, that dark gray layer, we want to do something here. Now, so the first thing I'm going to do to really show off what normal maps can do is on this Style layer, I am going to up the shininess. There you go. So in fact, you can see this shininess really happening, and in fact, that's the lights in the Scene tab operating on that surface, I should say. So now, with that shininess happening, let's go in and pick some, what we call a material, or a normal map. So open this up here, and I'm just going to hover over some of these normal maps. In this case, this actually project was a little bit hard because it's a very clean look. This Exascribe has this really clean look about it, but I found one that works really well. In fact, if we go down to the bottom, we have this speaker grill kind of look. Let me go ahead and apply that. I'm going to swirl this back to us and turn on that hand tool where you can move images as you need them. So I'm going to bring this down, size it up a bit, and get more of that true speaker grill look. I could even run it down a little bit and size that image up or size it down to whatever I'm really looking for. We have this nice shiny element. In fact, if I bring it back here, I'm going to go to the Scene tab and start messing with the lights a little bit. So I'm going to light one. I'm going to mess with it, and you're going to see how it plays off of the reflections on it. So I have my light coming from the lower right, and it's got one kind of look. If I move my light to the upper left, it's got a different kind of look because it's playing off of that shadow and that highlight. So I'm going to get my light pretty much coming from the top here for the most part. And I'm going to animate the logo down to really where I want it. And just to be tasteful, I'm going to back off that shininess from 100 down to something that's a little bit more reasonable. Something like that. So now it's looking a little bit more real world for me. So you can see that you can bring a really nice aesthetic, which is a little bit of texture using the normal maps. So again, bringing that forward, you can see what this is really doing, although it's blurred out because of our depth of field. And finally landing where we want to be in our video. So that covers normal maps, and it covers depth of field. Probably is a good time to ask some more questions.
Thanks, Travis. One of the questions we had was those textures that you're showing. Can you import textures that are outside, or do they have to be a certain file type, or they have to be within Titler Pro 3 already existing?
A normal map is a special type of image. It can be a JPEG or a PNG, except that it needs to be prepared by a normal map creating tool. I purchased a tool for, I think it was $30 to take textures that I already had, like concrete or dirt or whatever, and just process it through that tool, and I could make a normal map out of it. So all the textures that come with Titler Pro 3 also have a corresponding normal map with it. To be clear, they don't have to go together. You can have that normal map having a certain highlight and texture about it, but you could just be a solid color, or just be a gradient, or just be some other image. So you have that flexibility between the two. But you do need an image that has been prepared as a normal map, and there's tools out there. Just do a search, and you'll find some pretty inexpensive tools to make normal maps out of images that you have.
Another question we had was anyone who's purchased a lower third with Titler Pro 2, will those work with their Titler Pro 3?
Yes, if anyone had Titler Pro 2 and they purchased one of our lower third collections, or style collections for that matter, yes, they work in Titler Pro 3. The one thing that won't automatically happen necessarily is if you bring some of those lower thirds in, they won't automatically be exposing text strings and images. You'll have to go into Title Designer and check off those boxes if you want any particular text or images to be exposed as variables in the new Quick Edit design, as well as Elastic Timeline, of course.
Another question was, does Titler Pro actually work as a standalone product, or does it always have to be open within the NLE?
Actually, new in Titler Pro 3, it is a standalone product as well. So, and you would ask, like, why? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is, let's say that you're just digging down and making a whole bunch of titles. You don't necessarily want to open up your NLE. You're working on templates. You're working on a lot of pre-work that you'll be using later. Well, you can just launch Titler Pro. It's called Titler Pro Standalone. And launch that and do your design and then save out those NB title files. And also, you can actually go to File and export an image or export a movie file. So not only are we making projects that work inside NLEs now, but we're also allowing you the possibility to export an image that's a PNG with alpha in it, or an MOV file with alpha in it as well. So you can actually be rendering out rasterized assets to maybe share with someone else or do different kind of work with. Just a side note, actually, is if you happen to have an NLE that Titler Pro is not designed to work within, you can use Titler Pro Standalone to make some really cool looking assets and then use those assets in that video editor that you might happen to have.
Very cool. Another question we had was regarding a Sony Vegas user wanted to know, I know we're on Premiere, but we have a lot of Sony Vegas users in here as well. They want to know is when you select the text, what actually, where do you see that it shows up, or the font? So if I'm using a certain font on a title, where will that show up if I've selected it, so I know which font I'm using? I believe that's the correct question. Okay,
so let's close this down just to get it here. So we have our whole title happening here. In fact, let's zoom in so you can see effective, fast, easy. I'm going to open up Quick Edit. Check this out. It already exposed my easy, my fast, effective. I can change the text right there. Quick Edit is all about character strings. Is the person's name right? What are we typing out? What are we saying? It doesn't have the design controls. And so whether you're dealing with color, whether you're dealing with position, whether you're dealing with a particular font you want to use, that's when you go into Title Designer. So click the Title Designer tool and get in here. And let's say, effective, you want to have a different font. Right here at the top, we were using Arial Black, but here's all the different fonts you could be using for your design. The font is considered a design element for the templates.
Thank you. And then just earlier on, we had some questions regarding the styles and presets that come with Titler. Could you just go through a few?
Definitely.
Just to show kind of an example of maybe like a lower third and a style?
Yeah, so let's go into the library where you find all these presets. In fact, we can extend the library out just a little bit here to see more designs. So under styles, we have some very basic and clean ones right here. So let's see, what's a good position There we go. We'll have this position. So effective. So I can just hover over a style, and instantly I can see how that style is going to behave on that character string. Or I could jump over to another style, gold. A little dark for this composition, but you get the idea. So we could go to more of a cinematic kind of category. These come with Titler Pro 3. So I could do the cool gray look, or maybe the Firestone look. And so just hovering, you get to see these styles. So besides styles of basic, cinematic, and fun, notice the Hillcrest Collection, Midtown Collection, Muirlands Collection. Those are additional packs that you can purchase and get more and more styles from us. Under the project templates, if I just click the project templates right away, there's a number of templates that come with Titler Pro 3 right out of the gate. So red streak, let's double click that, and I'll scrub in. You can see this kind of lower third you got going on here. Another one would be, of course, Blue Tube, which we were using before. What's another really nice one? Teal Roll By. This is kind of a nice Gucci kind of look. It's kind of the sci-fi kind of clean kind of thing. So we have a number of lower thirds that already come with Titler Pro. But again, we have the graph packs, we have on air, we have prime time, and if you want to throw any templates that you make into that quick list in Quick Edit, right away to always be there and to be persistent there, this Quick Edit templates folder, you can be saving your templates into that folder, and then those will always be present, available for your use inside Quick Edit, no matter what project you're in your NLE.
And also, on the same note, just the products, the styles and the templates, are they just compatible with Titler Pro 3? Or can you actually bring in an effect or can you bring in a transition into Titler Pro 3?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, so under the transitions category and also under the effects category, in fact, in the effects, we have animations, which these are the kinds of things that make text fly around. But we also have these other products. Any of you familiar with our other products, you'll see these names: Motion Effects, Video Essentials 2, Video Essentials 6. The great thing about the rest of our catalog of effects and transitions is that not only do they work great in your NLE timeline to give you some great looks, they do double duty inside Titler Pro. Titler Pro is really another host for the rest of our effects and transitions. So as you accumulate more NewBlue product, essentially the feature set of your Titler Pro continues to grow and grow.
Gotcha. And we had another question regarding the After Effects version of Titler Pro 3. That's just another add-on. So if you already have Titler Pro, let's say Titler Pro 2.0, you would upgrade, if you wanted the After Effects version, you just upgrade to Titler Pro 3 After Effects, correct?
That'd be correct. There's some interesting new workflows in the After Effects experience that you don't get in a video editing application for obvious reasons. After Effects is this motion graphics tool. It has its own camera. It has its own lights. And we want to play nice in that space and really be a great, efficient workflow for After Effects users. That said, that there's additional features in the After Effects version that you won't see if you have just a version for your NLE. And so some of those features are that when you create your title and close it down into After Effects, and then you start moving your After Effects camera around, that camera can fly 360 all around that title. Also, you can use Titler Pro's lights or After Effects lights or a combination of the two, and the render that we make on the title is all about those After Effects lights coming onto that. So there's some really great integrated features for Titler Pro working inside After Effects. Now, some of you who might not be that familiar with what After Effects can do, you might kind of scratch your head and like, hey, I thought After Effects was a motion graphics tool that I make titles, and actually we've talked to a number of video editors that get into After Effects just enough to make their lower thirds, just enough to make that opening title sequence. Well, the great thing about using Titler Pro inside After Effects are a couple things. One, if you guys know the style capabilities of Titler Pro, which we didn't have a chance to get into deeply here, the amount of layers and bevel and extrusion you can do is just much more than the native After Effects title work. The extrusion, the textures, and all that kind of stuff, it just really builds rich looks. Secondly, you can have these great animations that automate a lot of the characters flying around, and then that's all contained in one title instance, and then you can just use your After Effects camera beyond that. Thirdly, just the render times. I mean, our tests here have been like, up to 30% or 30 times faster, not 30%, 30 times faster than the native extrusion that After Effects offers today. So if you're talking about efficiency, you're talking about getting some good looks to get together quickly, it makes a lot of sense to use Titler Pro within After Effects.
Great. And that's going to do it for us today. We appreciate everyone joining us. If you have any questions or any comments about what you've seen today, feel free to reach out to us at support@newbluefx.com or go to the hashtag TitlerPro3. Also, keep in mind we have our special for Titler Pro 3 at the moment, where you'll actually, when you purchase Titler Pro 3 or upgrade to Titler Pro 3, you can receive the free on-air pack. That's 12 templates of some really cool stuff that Travis got into a little bit, and you can actually view all that on the landing page if you visit www.newbluefx.com/TP3webinar1. Again, thanks for joining us, and on behalf of Travis White, as well as the NewBlueFX team, thanks for joining us, and have a great day.